Good morning, members, and welcome to the 9th day of session, 68th Wyoming Legislature Budget Session, February the 19th, 2026. If you needed to go in and sign off on your amendments for third reading, that time has passed. So hopefully everybody got things signed up the way they wanted to. Next thing we have is our good Assistant Chief Clerk, if she would please call the roll and we will get underway. Assistant Clerk.
Convening roll call for the 9th day, February 19th, 2026. Alamand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Gugemas, Haraldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storr, Strock, Stivar, Carver, Thayer, Washit, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker.
Here. Okay, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like our revenue committee is, some of those members are still making their way here, so we will hold the roll open until we'll take it again here in a moment, see if we can catch up the rest of the members. Fellow members and guests, I would like you to welcome for prayer of the day would be led by Deacon Stephen Lucas from St. Patrick's Catholic Church, Wheatland, and Mary Queen of Heaven, Chugwater, Wyoming. Please stand.
Thank you. I want to thank Representative Haraldson for inviting me here to be able to have this opening prayer with today's session and also tomorrow's session. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Good and gracious God, Heavenly Father, come before you today acknowledging your lordship over all nations and all leaders. Let's pause and consider Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. Let's be still for just a moment. As these legislators prepare to serve the people from our great state of Wyoming, we ask for the Holy Spirit to move from within them and fill them with wisdom, understanding, and a humble sense of piety, humble sense of awe of you, Lord. Grant them the clarity of mind and the purity of heart, so that in every decision and debate, they seek justice, mercy, and the common good above personal ambition or gain. Guide them to enact laws that reflect your truth, promote peace, protect the vulnerable, and uphold the dignity of every human life, from conception to natural death. May their work reflect your will, Lord, and may their efforts bring unity and flourishing to their communities. Lord, bless these leaders with the courage to stand firm in conviction when faced with pressure, and the grace to listen with open hearts to differing views. Lead them in the path of holiness for your name's sake. And finally, Heavenly Father, we ask for blessings and peace for the families of these legislators who await their return home after their time is spent here serving. Care for their families and their businesses during this time away. We ask all of these things in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. May the Lord bless you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you. We have got a large day before us. And so, and also want to tell you, this is a doctor. So we have a deacon and a doctor in the house here in this one. We've got two opportunities right there. So ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being here. All right, Journal Committee report. And then, well, let's see, wait a minute. Can we close this roll? Are they here?
Locke. Campbell Kevin.
Representative Campbell, are you present?
Nope.
Nicholas is still excused.
Mr. Speaker, we have 57 present, 5 excused.
Thank you, Assistant Clerk. Let's see here. Journal Committee report. Reading Clerk.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 18th, 2026 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Jarvis and Posey.
All right, thank you, Reading Clerk. The practitioner of the day is Michael Bloomquist. He will be here with us, and the nurse of the day is Casey Mullins, registered nurse. So they will be looking after us today, ladies and gentlemen. So they are here with us in the house, in the body. Representative Bratton, you have something for us, ma'am?
I do. A moment of personal privilege, Mr. Speaker, if I could.
Please, you may.
So up in the West Gallery, I would like to introduce LaDonna Liebrecht. She is a librarian in my Sheridan High School. It's her 46th year in education and 21 years at Sheridan High School. She's the Wyoming representative for the National James Patterson Award champion for education and for students. And she is also the outstanding Wyoming librarian for 2025 and 2026. She's happy to speak with you about all things library as long as you do it quietly. Thank you.
Welcome to the House. Glad to have you here with us today. Representative Filer, do you have something for us?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, can I have a quick privilege?
Absolutely. Proceed.
I'm already getting booed. All right. Whew. I got to sleep in a little bit today. Uh-oh. But hey, folks, what do you call a group of musical wells? No one? Yeah. Oh, for everybody online, it's an orchestra.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, we have a special event here this morning I'd like to take care of here right now. Our high school intern recognition. If you young ladies and young men would please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, the members of the House, each year the Wyoming Legislature sponsors a legislative internship program, providing high school and college students with a unique insight into the legislative branch of government and its crucial role in creating public policy. 3 of these 7 high school interns will complete their internships on Friday. We want to acknowledge them for all of their hard work. Representatives, please stand and join me in recognizing and congratulating these outstanding students seated in the gallery, or now standing. Before you, you have Kristen Boyson from Cody High School, Clayton Fodder from Cheyenne Central High School, and Taylor Peters from Powell High School. Thank you for being here and for all your efforts. You did outstanding work, and we're very thankful to have the opportunity to be able to work with you this past time, and look forward to all you're going to accomplish in your life as it moves ahead. So blessings on you, and thank you for being willing to share some of your time with us. And I hope it was a productive opportunity for you as well. So thank you for being here and all that you did. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next on our list of cool and interesting duties is messages from the Senate. None? Wow. There we go. Moving on. Reports from standing committees. Reading clerk.
Senate File 16, sponsored by Agriculture, subleasing of state lands exemptions, an act relating to state lands. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom referred Senate File 16, subleasing of state lands exemptions. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Davis, Bornstrom, Johnson, Ottman, Strock, Winter. Excuse Representative Provenza and Schmid. Representative Winter, Chairman.
That's it? Wow. Okay. All right. Don't have any Senate files. Representative Bayer, you have something for us, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor, please.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Everybody got a new goldenrod this morning. Hope you got that out of your mailbox or got it on your desk. Want to go over it with you after our action last night. So this would be a good point in time to compare our actions versus our brothers and sisters down the hallway. So just top level, so you understand, started out with the JAC budget that we brought to this floor and our colleagues on JAC brought to the floor down the hall. Their actions in their body were to add $366 million, all funds. The action here on this floor was to add $1.1 million, all funds. So on your goldenrod, you'll see under general funds in columns U and W on line 17 on the front page. The balance currently, as we're looking forward for 27 and 28, we're looking at a balance on the House version of the general fund of 196 million, and the Senate is negative 20, almost 26 million, for a difference of $220 million. Now, if you'll go down to the bottom of this page, should have brought my glasses up here. If you look at the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund Spending Policy Reserve Account on line 43 is where the title is, and line 47 is where the balance is, still on columns U and W. You'll see on the House version, 562, almost 563 million, and in the Senate version, 449, almost 450 million, a difference of 120 million. That action was in our, because of our actions in the 300 series, and I'll have you turn to page 4 right now. And in those same columns, here it's called V and X, the last two columns. And on lines 11, 12, and 13, you'll see of our 300 series, there's section 314, 315, and 316. The good prior appropriator and speaker got up and gave us a lesson on the 4%. Remember that? We talked about that. This was the spending policy. And so if you look in column V, you'll see on those lines, 11, 12, and 13, you'll see a negative 50 million, a negative 55 million, and a positive 95 million in the House column. But in the Senate column, you'll see no action because they did not have the same actions. And then if you go down to line 44, you'll see 138 million in our accounts and 149 in theirs. This is this is appropriations out of the spending policy, or out of the school foundation side. We're $11 million less on the spending. And that's the action of those three. If you add those three up above, 11, 12, and 13, there's $11 million less on our side. So when we chose to say we're going to restrict our spending from 5% down to 4.5%, and then we also said we're going to get rid of all the complexity in the above the cap spending of FMRs and severance. And then we took that and just simply divided it 50-50 between the general fund and the school foundation. That's where we added the 95 million that you see on line 14. So all three of those actions ended up with $11 million less in the school foundation checking account, if you will. And I'll just remind the body that the way funding works for the school block grant, if at the end of the year, whatever the balance is, if it's anything less than 100 million, the LISRA is going to backstop that and bring the checking account for the schools back up to 100 million on July 1st. So that 11 million, if everything stayed static, we'd take $11 million out of LISRA and put it into the school foundation program. Now, this document does not contemplate recalibration yet. So all that's going to change when we debate and finish out the recalibration bill. All right, going on to page 2. You'll see the balances here on the general fund spending. We spent $30 million less on line 20. And then if you look at line 29, where we're sitting at today, we spent $250 million less. And you recall at the beginning of the budget discussion on Thursday of last week, I said that the JAC budget did two things with all of our savings that this body should watch. One was that we put $44 million into savings, temporary savings, and the other is that we set aside $50 million for bills that we would pass this session. And so far, if you look down at the very bottom here of page 2, you'll see on line 62, we still have just under $4 million left of that 50 million. The Senate has already overspent the 50 million and an additional 218 million. So what does that mean? If we went with the Senate budget, basically we'd have to do some budget balancers, and the SIPA may come into play to do that, depending on we failed House Bill 33 that would get rid of SIPA and simplify our accounting, but the Senate is bringing a bill, Senate File 119, to do the same thing. So we may end up using the money out of SIPA. If we don't, we have to use it out of LISRA to cover this spending. So again, that line 62 is real clear what we've done so far. Of the 50 million that we came into the session with, we spent all but 4 million. And the Senate has spent all the 50 and 218 million. So they're in the hole 218 million right now. Likely that will end up coming out of the LSRA, which is about 1.5 billion right now. If you go to page 3, thing of note here, if you look at the SIPA, there's a little bit of a difference there. In the very bottom of the page, line 84, you can see there's $60 million difference between the House and the Senate and SIPA. We already covered page 4. Page 5, if we look at the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund spending policy reserve account, now this is our 5X and 7X. We talk often about the 5X and 7X. If you guys recall, we have these accounts that are outside of our permanent savings that we're trying to get up to 7 times our spending policy so that we can invest them in long-term, higher rate of return investments. So where are we at so far? If everything stayed static, the House version has we're over 6 times on the general fund side or the permanent mineral trust fund side, almost 7X, and we're at a similar position on the school side. So those reserve accounts are at a place where our good investment teams can begin to really make good investments and get better returns. There is a possibility, based on our current investments and the way these accounts are tracking, that the permanent mineral trust fund reserve account will hit the max of 7X by July 1st, which means that money will actually go right back into the permanent mineral trust fund and flow down to our general fund. So we're starting, our good work is starting to create a situation where we're going to have even more money to spend as a body. One last thing I'd like to share with you on the very last page is our water accounts. So if you look at line 28, there's a difference between the House and the Senate of $17 million. So I want to remind the body, this is prior actions. The Water One account was used to pay for the engineers that deal with water. It was your JAC's actions, and this body maintained those actions to give that money back to Water One to spend on projects and spend the 17 million for the engineers that work on water out of the general fund. So again, I'd take you back to page 1, line 17. Even though we spent 17 million more than the Senate to pay for the engineers, we still have 220 million more than the Senate. So again, that 17 million now is available for water projects because of your actions. And I think we all agree that those are important projects that we do with our Water One account. And with that, I appreciate the body's time to share that with you, and I'll be back at my desk if you have questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Bear. We appreciate the insight and the update on that. And I would encourage all members, if you have questions, to get a hold of the chairman and help ourselves be better informed on how and what this is. Representative Williams, please.
Privilege.
Privilege of the floor. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you'd briefly turn your attention to the South Gallery, we have members of the University of Wyoming Leadership Academy with us today. Thank you, members. Please stand. Thank you for your civic leadership, and thank you for engaging with Wyoming communities and Wyoming industry.
Welcome. Glad to have you. Welcome to the House. Glad you're here. I see one face I kind of recognize, the young lady on this end. I do believe you are Senator Crago's daughter. Yes, okay. Welcome to the House. So, all right. Representative Washut, Chairman Washut, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of personal privilege.
Absolutely, sir. Proceed.
Thank you. In our gallery today are the folks who invited us to breakfast this morning. There are community bankers from all over the great state of Wyoming who have come to the Capitol on the snowy day to be with us today. These are the bankers who serve our communities on a daily basis and do great work. And I just want everybody to please stand and welcome them to the North Gallery.
Welcome and thank you for being here. Welcome to the House. Mr. Meyer, always a pleasure. All right. Anything else? Do we have any other announcements? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, bills on second reading. Reading clerk.
House Bill 10, sponsored by Judiciary, Sexually Explicit Materials in Libraries Requirements, an act relating to libraries and education.
Okay, House Bill 10, we have some amendments, 4 as of right now. First amendment for your consideration on House Bill number 10. Representative Yin, please proceed, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I bring before and move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 10 and ask for a favorable, ask for your consideration. Members, so what this does is it makes it clear that it wouldn't just apply to libraries, it would apply to bookstores as well. Bookstores that would be accessible with the children's section or primarily towards children. And so if there's a section where they have a children's and a not children's section, they'll have to put it into the children's, the adult section. So the reason I bring this is because if we truly think that there are pornographic materials in our libraries, I don't know why we would also leave them in children's sections in bookstores as well. As I've said before during Committee of the Whole, I don't think that there are pornographic materials. I think that's actually a way to use that as a reason to put those books in a different place. But if you believe that there are, then this is the amendment to keep it out of children's sections of the bookstores as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Any member would like to speak on the amendment, first time? Representative Guggenmoss, first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd urge the body to resist this amendment.
Representative Washington. I mean, you guys don't look exactly alike, but I mean, it's like Representative Guggenmoss.
Thank you,
if
Mr.
please.
Speaker. Unopposed, libraries are funded by tax dollars, whereas bookstores are private. So I don't think it's our place to get involved in private entities like that. But however, the library is being publicly funded. I believe that is in our jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Washington, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I urge you to resist this amendment. We don't need a rules committee or any of that, but if you look at the title of the bill and you look at the nature of this amendment, the bill's a library bill. It's in the title. It's all about libraries. That's what your committee number 1 worked on over the interim, libraries. To add in private businesses into that bill, I ask you to recognize that that's beyond the scope of the bill.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members? Representative Brady, your first time, ma'am.
Thank you, Speaker. I was going to mention what everybody did already, the public versus private dollars, libraries versus bookstores. And then, you can order these online as well. I mean, we can keep going. When's it going to stop? So private funding in libraries. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for your first time on the amendment? Seeing no one, second time on the amendment. Back to the bringer. Representative Yin, please, sir.
Members, I actually agree it is outside of the scope, but we had precedent last year that said a lot of things are in scope compared to what we had before. So I think it is valid within our current precedent. What I would say is that we don't allow pornography in the children's section of a bookstore either. We don't. It's not allowed, right? So if we're saying that what we're dealing with is pornography in libraries, but it's not pornography because we don't allow pornography in children's sections in the bookstore, then what are we doing? But I will say, with the body's indulgence, that it might be too far out of my own personal bounds. I will respectfully withdraw the amendment without objection.
Any objection from the body on the withdrawal of the amendment by the bringer? Seeing no objection, so ordered. Next amendment for our consideration to House Bill number 10, amendment number 2, second reading. Representative Jarvis, please, ma'am, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that,
Second reading amendment number 2.
second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 10 and ask for everyone's favorable consideration.
Very good.
So in the last week, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, what are you doing here? And kind of start laughing and at these amendments and saying that they were not valid and real. But today I'm bringing you guys something that I'm actually begging that you consider, because I'm adding first animals and extraterrestrial beings into the definitions. And why? Why would I do that? Because I can tell you that in a district, when we started doing sexually explicit images, we had librarians going page by page by page through books. And guess which books were the biggest culprits that we had no idea? They're graphic novels, they're comic books. No one, it turns out, my amazing librarians don't read comic books very often. So no one knew. No one knew those were there. And when we started flipping through these pages, it's people with animal heads. It's extraterrestrial animals doing things, and the pictures are disgusting. They're sexually explicit. So as we came across these, and we had to start putting them and reshelving them in our opt-in section, it became very clear that the definition of person didn't work here. But here's the problem. As we entered animals, guess what that opened up? Now all of a sudden, our animal science books weren't meeting the standards, because it opened up that they quite possibly, by our definitions, could be sexually explicit as well. So now what do? Do we take the animal science out? Or how do we deal with these books? Because were our graphic novels a problem? They really were. And in a million years, would we have thought that's where we would have found this? No, nobody knew. So it's not a joke to ask to put these into the definition. It's a problem. It's a real problem. The second one, parent permission. And why I'm asking for that is because, and actually I'll move to the next one because then it'll make sense. No child, the amendment, no child will have access to online books without parent permission. Why? Because we spent hours and hours and days trying to find a vendor that would allow us to pull a book out if it was reconsidered. Vendors have areas, like they'll have young adult, they'll have children's. But if there's a book found in the young adult section in any of these or these, what is the term that we're using? When it goes through this process and it needs to be reshelved into another category, the nation doesn't allow us to recategorize a book into another category. So we can't remove that book from the young adult section and put it in the adult section and prevent a child from being able to access that book in our communities and in our libraries. It's not possible. And if there's a vendor that creates that, they're going to make millions with what's going on right now in our nation. Because this is a very, very gray area. This is the one place that the First Amendment still exists in our nation, like wholeheartedly still exists, nobody's censoring. And what does that do? It brings up the fact that in our national laws, our First Amendment doesn't come out clearly and say when the right belongs to the child and when the right belongs to the parent. So it gets muddy really, really fast on when do we choose. Is it the child's right to choose or is it the parent's right to choose? And through this process, it's been ugly. It's been really ugly because it's highlighted a lot of things that we don't have systems and structures to be able to respond to. So as we're sitting here trying to figure this out, the online access, in the school district that I was in, when a parent opted out, it immediately locked that child out of all online books because we knew we couldn't control them. And if the parents wanted that right back, they had to call us and ask for it because we cannot censor online books. It's impossible. So if we're going to add a fine to these people for doing this, online books are out. There's no exception to that. Because if you're going to cause penalties for reshelving books, guess what? Online books are open access to everything. So we need to remove that. But I also want you to consider that in an education with curriculum, as a curriculum director currently, I can tell you how hard it is to find print resources. Because after COVID, guess what happened? All of these companies and vendors found out they make way more money with online licenses. So we have to pay for student licenses every year for things that we used to be able to get textbooks for. And I assure you, when you go to try to find a textbook, people aren't printing them anymore. So we're going to lock them out of online, but hey, by the way, that's the only way that we can access their curriculum. Wow, we're in a conundrum. It's a problem. But I'm going to tell you, if this bill goes through, you are putting a lot of people at risk because they cannot control something that is a national problem. I also asked in this the amendment, that we follow the movie rating system. And there's a really big reason why. Because since the 1960s, we've developed a system for rating movies. Not a single soul questions when you see a movie that says R. Everybody's like, oh, that's an R-rated movie. School districts can put policies in place extremely easy, and we all have them. If a movie is over a G rate, a G, not a PG, a G, we get parent permission. We censor movies to that level because we can. Nobody knows what is in a book until you have read it from the front to the back. So if they came up with a rating system for books, I assure you, school districts would be ecstatic because we could easily align to that. We don't know what to do. Does it lie with the parent? The right to censor? Does it lie with the government? Or does the kid get to choose? It's really gray, really muddy. And I ask that you vote because if we're going to do this, then these amendments have to happen in order to keep our children and our librarians safe. Because if you don't, you are literally setting these people up to be sued, and that lawsuit will go through because we can't censor online.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are speaking on amendment number 1 to House Bill 10. Representative Washington, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bringer of the amendment's correct. This is a muddy, murky, difficult arena to navigate. Speaking to the first part of the amendment, certainly these graphic novel, comic book style books are among those that we saw over the summer that contained sexually explicit content. The committee did not see any that had extraterrestrials. They very well may exist, but those weren't among those that we saw over the course of the summer. we really focused most of our effort on looking at these physical documents type books and materials in libraries. We looked initially at the electronic card catalog systems, and some of those can have rather graphic images associated just with the card catalog cover of the book, right? And so we really focused on the hard physical copies. I leave it to the body to wrestle with the muddy stuff that your committee number one wrestled with over the course of the summer, and see what you think about this topic.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for the first time on amendment number 2? Any other members? Seeing none. Representative Washut, would you like to speak again? Evidently not. Representative Washut, there are no other, do you want to speak again? You have a second shot at this if you'd like to say anything else before we go back to the bringer. Oh, well, you've got another go round if you want, and then I will take it back to the bringer. Okay, back to the bringer. Representative Jarvis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I realized I forgot to say one other thing. The parent permission, that is absolutely fundamental to make this work. Because guess what? There are kids on IEPs that actually need those online electronic resources that we can't censor. Because speech to text and text to speech and having things for students who have visual impairments, it being able to be read to them. So parent permission in order to follow federal law is also mandatory. Thank you. And I ask for everybody's favorable consideration.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are voting on second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill number 10. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has not been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration to House Bill 10, second reading amendment number 3. Representative Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment 3 to House Bill 10.
Perfect. Thank you, Representative.
I did that good, didn't I?
You did a wonderful, and by the way, good morning, Representative Connolly. How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
All right, what this amendment does is it removes the cause of action part of this bill. But before I get into that, I want to say that I appreciate all the time and effort that the committee put into this bill. It is an important issue, and our children should not be exposed to very explicit with the definitions that are in the bill. Our little kids, especially from like clear up to 12 years old. But the thing that I have an issue with here is the piece that talks about the lawsuits and the fines. And what I've done is I've amended that to take that piece out of the bill. So what I'm afraid is going to happen is our libraries, public libraries and schools typically have a challenge process to a book. That is a great thing. That's the tool to be able to go, I'm going to challenge the fact that this book is in this part of the library that it probably shouldn't be. But what is the heartburn for me with our librarians is that once in this bill, once you make that challenge, if the organization doesn't agree with you, then that opens it up to a lawsuit. And I'm just afraid that we're going to have our librarians so nervous that every time they turn around, somebody's going to challenge them on a book. So I feel it's really important to be able to take this piece out of the bill and really focus on these challenge procedures and the terminology of the books and where they should be located. So with that, I would ask for your favorable support on this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Conley. First time, Representative Jarvis on the amendment, number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want everyone to be aware of this. Last week, I got a text message from one of my former librarians. And this is what it said. I told a parent to give you a call because she's really upset because her school district just took all the books in all of the libraries in their district and donated them to the public school and said, we don't want to deal with this anymore. Library gone. That's how school districts are dealing with this.
Representative Chestick, for your first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would urge an aye vote on this amendment. This is an issue that I spotted when we had the bill in Judiciary Committee, in the committee number 1. My problem with this provision that the amendment now removes is that it's a one-way thing. There's a right of action only for people who want to sue the library. There is no corresponding right in the library to sue itself. There's also no appeal process for a family that thinks the materials are not sexually explicit, and then the library makes the wrong decision and removes materials that should not be removed. There's no remedy for that family or that individual. There's only a remedy for people who want to remove things. So it's a one-way process. And for that reason, I opposed the bill. It's one of many reasons I opposed the bill, but I am very much in favor of this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Chestick. Any other members for their first time? Amendment number 3. Seeing none, second time. Like to speak second time, Representative Jarvis, possibly? We good? All right, Representative Conley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The other thing I want to mention on this is there are a number of lawsuits right now against this verbiage about being able to sue and have the penalties. Some say some of these suits talk about being unconstitutional, vague, and overbroad. Others are talking about, so like in early 2026, there was a lawsuit, it's ongoing, and the plaintiffs are seeking injunctions against enforcement, arguing it violates the First and 14th Amendment. Like I said before, this could be potentially caught up in the courts, and nobody wants to have this material in the library that I know of, but I am going to have trouble supporting the bill without this piece in it. So I would appreciate your favorable attention to the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Conley. Body, you are voting on second reading amendment number 3 to House Bill number 10. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The chair is in question. All those in favor, please stand. You may be seated. All those in favor, please stand. Opposed? Yeah, you guys were just up. I'm sorry. All right, you may be seated. The amendment has not been adopted. It's failed. Okay, next amendment for our consideration, House Bill 10, Amendment number 4, Representative Larson. Lloyd, please, sir, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and if you indulge me just a second, the good attorney that's on, that spoke just a little bit ago and talked about how we don't provide the ability to, for non-sexually explicit material to be addressed in this bill, was what the amendment that I was going to bring forward.
Sorry, Representative Larson, if you would please move the amendment.
And please, Mr. Chair, just give me just 1 second there and I'll get that. But with this, the problem with my amendment is that it potentially opens up more lawsuits with leaving the last amendment in place. So Mr. Speaker, I respectfully withdraw this second reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 10.
Thank you, Representative. Is there any objection from the body? Seeing no objection, the amendment has been withdrawn. All right, House Bill number 10, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 111. Reading clerk.
House Bill 111, sponsored by appropriations, state-funded capital construction, an act relating to state-funded capital construction.
We have amendments. First amendment brought by the good Representative Washit. Please, sir, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just a few short hours ago, we voted for this amendment as part of the budget bill. There's an old saying in the legislature that sometimes you wear belts and suspenders to keep our pants up. In other words, we like to have 2 horses in the race. We saw last year great work by this body to include this amendment, this language, this funding in last year's supplemental budget bill. Didn't make it to the finish line, and it left the project in a lurch. What this amendment does is simply put the same language into this bill so that if one or the other, the budget bill or this bill, were to pass the legislature and be signed into law, the funding would be approved. It's no different other than there's one line at the bottom there where you see there's a dollar for dollar reduction should the budget bill pass. So we're not doubling the allocation. If the budget bill passes, this amendment has no effect. If the budget bill does not pass and this bill does, the funding still gets released to the complex. Belt and suspenders, please vote aye.
Thank you, Representative. Any member for the first time on the amendment? Seeing no one. Oh, no, Representative Bears, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently changed from belts to suspenders. I do recommend it to everybody in this age of expanding waistlines. It's very nice, very comfortable. I could be ambivalent about this. It really doesn't affect what we do. I prefer keeping things singular in our actions, so I'm going to be a no, but vote your conscience.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for the first time? Seeing none, back to the bringer. Or Representative Sherwood, you coming? Oh, okay. Representative Washington.
If you voted aye last night, please vote aye on this.
Thank you, Representative. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 111. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. Okay, you may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. You may be seated. The amendment has been adopted. 28 to 25. All right, members, next amendment for our consideration to House Bill 111, second reading, amendment number 2. Representative Sherwood, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 111 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, I think that we all like to get stuff done and we like to finish what we start. So I am bringing you this as a consideration. These projects were in our, the CapCon bill that we didn't quite get across the line last year. And so I'm hoping we can do that this year. Again, the amendment goes back to the State Building Commission's recommendation. It's always been traditional that the state provide 55% of general funds, matching 45% of federal funds to our community college projects. So I want to honor that. And just say again, for every year that we delay, it costs the taxpayers more money. And I don't want that. So between delays and inflation, we all know construction costs have gone up. I want the community colleges to be able to move forward, finish these projects, come in with what the budget is today, and take good care of the buildings that they already have and enhance those for the students that are working in them. So please vote aye on these projects. Again, these are not in my district. I just think it's good policy to get them funded and get these projects finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. First time on the amendment, Representative Geringer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To add on to what the good rep from over the hill in the university town talked about, 3 of these are for projects at the community college here locally. And if I could call your attention to a handout that you received yesterday. It shows you some of the work that gets done here. We've got, and I'll remind you too, we're talking about a series of buildings that were built with aggregate that wasn't known to have issues back during that construction time. That has caused the concrete to degrade. And if we don't take care of it, not only are we risking, $1.2 million was the increase in cost over the last year. If we continue to let that go, eventually we'll reach the point where those buildings are not able to be used anymore. Because they've reached the point where it's no longer safe to have students and members of the public in there. So when you look at the handout, if you turn over to the back page, it shows pictures of what's being done right now on one building. And you can see that there's a lot of work that has to be done here. There's excavation that has to occur to stabilize what's below grade, take care of the drainage, and then go up from there. So I would ask that you consider that this is really trying to take care of properties that we really need to take care of. It's not something, it's not just a cost saving measure to not include this in the CapCon. It's a safety measure. We talk about how our community colleges are very important to our continuing ed programs. A great starting point either to enter the workforce in some good paying jobs, or even as the springboard to attend another university, the one over the hill or somewhere out of state. These are great alternatives for our students and even adults that want additional education to re-enter the workforce. And so I'm a proponent of all of these because they're all of our community colleges, but in particular, also for the local community and the local community college. I'd appreciate your support.
Thank you, Representative. Members, for your first time, Representative Connolly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in favor of this amendment. We have a community college. It's not in my district, but it's really close by, that I support 100%. I've had grandchildren attend that college, and they're doing amazing things for the CTEs and the thing that they're focused on right now is a project that's shovel ready. We talked about it a little bit the other day, but it's the Science Center. And when our kids can participate in a facility, inside a new facility like this, they may not have, some of them don't have the opportunity to travel very far. They have limited funds. But when you have a facility like this that's being proposed in a community our size, I think it's really a mistake not to support it. This project right now, I mean, they've got ventilation problems in their building, fire suppression's an issue, lighting, security, functionality of their lab spaces. I mean, why would we not, when the local contractors from the State Department indicate a favorable bidding season right now, and the college is ready, they could send go out for bids almost immediately when this would be allocated. So I just don't want us to see us hurting our kids' opportunities to get these local community college, take advantage of those services. So please vote on this bill amendment in an aye fashion.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Bear, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple of things I want to share with the body on this amendment. I did share earlier the goldenrod with you, where the JAC brought $40 million for us to, $50 million initially for us to spend. And I want to remind the body that we're at 3.8 million remaining. Then I'd like you to take a look at the handout, which I think is very helpful. And what you'll see is some incredible workmanship where we're going from the old design with the brick outside or the concrete outside to a really beautiful facade. And I want you to just realize that this is work on the facade of the building. Could it eventually lead to deterioration to the point where the building falls down? Yeah, it could. We live in a windy climate, windy place. And I think they're doing good work to improve that. You can see that in these photographs. Our construction department does schedule when they're going to do repairs based on the funds that they have available. So what did the chief executive do with this particular request? He said that they can go ahead and keep moving forward if they can raise the private funds to do that, but there would be no state funds made available for this particular project. It's a worthy project, and you can decide right here whether you want to go ahead and spend that 3.8 million that's remaining and go into the negative on the checking account, or you can leave it the way it is, where it's approved to be done by private funds until more general funds become available, and it goes higher on the list of projects that the construction department is prioritizing. So with that, I would urge a no vote at this time, and let's allow the college to raise those private funds and keep moving forward until the state can step in and assist.
Representative Brown, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought you were going to go to the other former appropriator over there. My apologies. So ladies and gentlemen, I I appreciate this amendment. Certainly appreciate the community college in my neck of the woods here. One thing that I keep hearing, and I've heard it twice so far this morning, is our JAC gave us $40 million to spend out of. How gracious. How gracious that they gave us slush fund to build out of. But I will remind the body that all 62 members of this body get to decide whether or not we spend money. And we can spend it out of a lot of other areas. And the other thing I will remind the body continuously of, that the budget that was submitted from the chief executive had $250 million in excess. There was another $250 million that was raised just last month in earnings. And then after the JAC brought this budget, there was $250 million in cuts. So this idea that we had a $40 million, we'll call it a slush fund that they gave us to appropriate out of, and if we appropriate out of this, we're going to go negative in our checking account. Ladies and gentlemen, we have $750 million to invest in our community colleges if we need to. On and for.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Larson. Lloyd, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to share with the body that I think that this amendment really has value. And when we talk about funding and the consequences behind it, a lot of times when we look at putting the funding in that we've talked about, then it becomes ongoing. We put 4 million in, it's going to be 4 million every biennium, and it carries on till the cows come home. But on capital construction stuff, it's one-time funding. That's why we always use the SIPA so much, is because that's one time comes in, we spend it to build stuff out, and then it doesn't come back as a recurring cost. The problem with delaying construction, as the good engineer from here in the capital city noted, is the costs continue to go up. If you'll look at page 4 of the CapCon bill, you'll see on line 7 the Department of Health Veterans domiciliary that we're going to rebuild. That is, we're going to do that for $87 million. When that was first brought forward in 2015, it was 49 million. We got tangled up on when the government would, or when the VA would reimburse us for those costs. We kept putting it off, batting that back and forth, trying to say, what if we never get reimbursed, and the costs just keep going up? And so now we could have built 2 of those for what we're paying for it now. So here, as you look at these projects, they've been identified, and particularly here in the capital city, as you go down and look at that college, a lot of that's precast. And one of the problems they have on the exterior is the seams are starting to allow moisture in the outside air to migrate internally, which when we've done the Herschler building, really, that's why we had to redo the outside facade of the Herschler building, is the joints were allowing migration of moisture and whatnot in and damaging the structural metal inside. And so the longer we put off doing that, more damage is done. And it's not just about looks, it's about protecting that asset to get the longest life you can out of that structure. So for $4 million, you can't rebuild one of those buildings for anywhere close to that. So the investment here, I think, will extend that life. We've proven that life out extensively. And then the final point I'd make is, historically what we've done with community colleges is says you raise half, the state will come in and pay half. We kind of, in this, for whatever reason, the governor's pushed back and says, no, you can use your own funds. And we've always allowed the community colleges, if they wanted to go ahead with kind of a unique, an enhancement, if you will, type project, they could use their own funds. But if it was a building that meets the criteria of statute, then the state generally meets 50%. And so that's what this does. And so I think going back to getting this put into place saves the state money in the long run. Just think of the domiciliary up in the land where the buffalo are at, that we're now paying way more than we should. It's time to do it now. It's the most cost effective. They've got everything in place to do it, and I would encourage an aye vote.
Thank you, Representative. Representative, first time on the amendment. Representative Harshman, first time.
Shocking. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you could pull out your goldenrod again. I know it was just said, had some constituent service I was taking care of, so I'm coming to this, but I used to be this goldenrod. We had the budget reserve, and then that would flow to the general fund, the LSRA, and it was all kind of linked together. And there was one important number you could look at each day to see where we were at. And I always called it the most important number of the day. And I used to talk to the body, look at this number every day on the new goldenrod. You'd see where the spending's going. Well, that's been all blown up. So it's not that easy anymore. It's actually more confusing now. So if you would turn to page 3 of your goldenrod, and I think these are really the numbers. Look at the general fund page 2, but also look at the LSRA balance. And you can see we're sitting at, the 1.5 billion. That hasn't changed. And then I think look down at just below that, the SIPA account. And that's where this is going to come from. So it's not going to come out of the general fund. We're going to flow that back in. It might say that in amendment, but it's going to come out of this. So the 228 million left in that account. And that account, of course, keeps refueling itself with investment revenue unless we mess that up. So yeah, that's why we built that account in the first place of people that came here before us, because we always have to talk about building stuff. Just like they did in 1888 and 1917 here. So there's plenty of money in there and it's going to keep flowing. So the worst thing to do is wait, because this thing's going up 10% a year. It's not getting any cheaper. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Davis, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, we had a little bit of a lesson in remodeling. And, at what state do you take it down to the foundation and stuff like that? But I believe that the recommendation by the state is to repair. And I think there's enough value in these buildings that we need to repair now and not wait for that other remodeling where we have to take it down to the foundation again. So I'm on and for this.
Any other member for the first, Representative Pendergraft, please.
Thank you. First for a second.
First for a second, Representative Nicholas, please. Please, yes, sir. Proceed.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you guys already know what my position is on this, and I hate to regurgitate what I talked about earlier. But our community colleges are the backbone of Wyoming. It's pretty interesting. What we contribute down to community colleges is almost the equivalent to what we do for the university that's over the hill. And it's a big deal. These buildings are deteriorating and they don't have the money to fix it. It's just that simple. They work so hard to raise funds in order to meet their half. It's actually amazing how hard they work for it. It's not like let's take the community colleges, happens to be in the center of the state. Beautiful buildings, unbelievable. We don't have that here. And so it's absolutely crucial that we take care of these buildings. And so they're not expanding programs, they're not doing anything. They're just trying to take care of their darn buildings. So this isn't about whether you believe or not believe in spending money. We're trying to save these buildings so we don't have to triple the costs of new buildings. I mean, it's it's interesting to me that this is even an issue. Why wouldn't we do, it's, it kind of reminds me of this building we're standing in right now, we're sitting all in. It cost $120 million just to replace the footings in this building because they were deteriorating. And we had to vacate it for 4 years because it took us that long just to fix the problem. Well, this is kind of the same issue. They won't have classrooms. They won't be able to do what they do. We created community colleges. We fund them. And it's our responsibility to take care of them. And I think it's just the abdication of our responsibilities if we just say no to something that has to happen. So in favor.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Campbell, for your first time, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment, and coming from maybe a different perspective, I've been in multiple conversations over the last few days, students from our community colleges, students from our university, and then on the other side, our private sector, especially our legacy industries, natural gas, oil. And the conversations I am hearing from all of them is if the state isn't willing to invest in the future of our education, in the future and our students, why should we? Why should we? So when we as a state say, no, we're not gonna invest in that, let the private sector do it. And we tell our community colleges, you need to raise the funds to do this. The message we are sending is the state doesn't view this as a good investment. We don't invest in our community colleges. We don't invest in our university. We don't invest in our students. So why should they? That is not a message I want to send. I would much prefer this body say, the state believes in the future of Wyoming. We invest in our community colleges. We invest in our university. We invest in our students. That's the message I want to send. So I'll be voting yes on this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Otten, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for someone that knows. On page 5, line 10 through 14, we're talking about $500,000 for a qualified owner's representative. I just kind of like to know what that position is.
Thank you, Representative. Other members for the first time. Representative Sherwood.
Mr.
Floor is
Speaker,
yours.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes,
are we going to second time?
first time. I think Representative Sherwood, were you going?
I think this is her amendment. Mr.
Yeah, her
Speaker.
amendment, but okay, I get what you're
I think
saying.
she
Any other
amended
members
it.
for their first time, then we'll go to second. Is that it? Nobody else? Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to start with the last question from the good representative from where the river is a ton. A owner's representative is a very good practice that our construction department uses. What it is, it's somebody that stays pretty much on site during the construction to ensure that the owner, which is the state in this case, their interests are watched out for along, as you're working with the general contractor and just making sure everything's running smoothly and that there are not cost overruns that are just needlessly happening. So they're really looking out for us and our taxpayers' dollars going into that project. And because they use these, and I'm a big proponent of them, because they use these people, we get bigger reversions after the projects are done. In other words, we spend less than what we anticipated, and we get to see some big reversions come back from this department at some point in time. Usually every year we see some good reversions come back. So that's what that is. The good prior appropriator brought up the VA hospital. And I think it's a good illustration of this situation because there's not a construction project out there that time is money. They all, time is money. And if you look at it, it's been a decade of the VA hospital waiting to be worked on. Well, why is it the highest priority of the construction department right now in this bill and in this budget session? Because it's been delayed and the costs are going up. It's an $87 million project today. And it could have been 50 million. It could have been completely covered by the feds, but we delayed that. And why did we delay it for 10 years? I think it's probably the same reason we're saying we need to delay now. We'd rather take care of that project. We have to create priorities because there are things like roads that need to be funded. There's healthcare that needs to be funded. And we as a body just make these decisions. What is our priority? And in this case, I am of the mindset that the priority is the VA hospital. And these facades, although, you know, if time goes on, it could be a problem. These are facades, and the construction department determined this to be a lower priority than the $87 million we're prepared to spend today. And this body's already put into this bill and passed 2 readings. So I would recommend a no on this, and let's stay on course with the VA hospital.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Pendergraft, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes this job gets really tough. You guys know that. I'm a contractor. I understand the arguments. In fact, I've made them in continuing this project. And I'm going to say that at this time, I'm going to be a no on this amendment. And that's probably the most reluctant no that I've ever given. I have some questions that I have yet to get answered on this project, and I'm going to seek for answers. Vote your conscience.
Representative Larson Lloyd, for your second time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and similar to my good retired veteran railroad worker from here in Cheyenne who got up and very quietly, as he always does when he votes, told us that the facility up in Buffalo is not a VA hospital. VA hospitals are 100% funded federally projects. This is a state-owned veterans domiciliary that the feds will participate with the state in reimbursing. The reason it wasn't built initially is we just flat didn't have the money. And so there's an application process that you come in and put the money in and the feds will reimburse, I think it's 69%. It's a partnership, state and federal on this domiciliary. And you have to apply to be qualified. Wyoming didn't qualify in the initial round. And so then the question was, is when would do we know the time when we would be able to get reimbursed if we built the hospital? And that was always the hesitation. It wasn't a priority, but do we want to put in and pay for the whole enchilada and wait for 10 years before we get it back, or even possibly never? And that's what we kept batting back and forth across the net, was that argument is, are we willing to absorb the total cost, or are we with the thought that maybe the feds will come back and reimburse it? And that's where we're at today. And we have, by virtue of this vote, it says, yes, we're going to pay for it. It's not going to get cheaper, recognizing that the feds probably will, but there is an option that there is possibility that they may not. So if you look at these items on here, this is not a priority list. It might be a priority list for those of us. I think the priority for the folks here in perhaps where the 4A state football team is state champions this year, that might be their priority. And in this town, these others might be their priority, but we've not listed those. The Department of Construction has evaluated all of them and approved them. Now, to historical perspective, all of these community college ones were approved last year in front of the facility for the veterans. We didn't pass the bill. So I don't think you can put a priority list on it. I think that they're all worthy. The department that oversees and makes recommendations back to the State Building Commission made recommendations. Those 5 approved them. And here's where we're at. And so again, the arguments, one-time funding out of the SIPA, which we continue to get, that's what we created the SIPA for. And we get those funds every year to help us do these types of projects. And historically, the state has met for these projects that qualify, match 50%. This is extending the life cycle of these buildings out another 25 or 30 years, much cheaper than building them new. So would encourage an aye vote.
Representative Geringer, for your second time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wow, the energy in this room is just dead right now.
You think?
I wonder why. I for one enjoyed the snow last night, driving home in it. A little bit slick out, but boy, it sure is good to see some moisture out there. So folks, I want to take you back to a couple of comments by a previous speaker. Will say, don't get fooled by the red herring that this is just a beautification facade project to make it look pretty. This is actually about saving those buildings. The external facade, actually, there's energy efficiency improvements that go along with that, so our operational costs will go down a little bit, but it's also a protection of that outside. Because the more moisture and exposure that gets, the concrete goes all the way up. It's not just what's buried, it goes all the way up. These are precast double T exteriors. And so they're all made of concrete. The aggregate's all throughout. So that external facade is not just for beautification. It is primarily for protection of those buildings. So don't get distracted by that. I'll also point out, it was brought up that there were maybe more private funds could be generated for this. Well, I'll tell you what, there is a project that's just up for our approval on where there were private funds that came in for the remainder that was needed for the Auto Tech building. That's great. But how many times can you go back to those sources? There's a limited number of people that you can go to or businesses that you can go to say, hey, we need a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And this is a state building. So it's great that people want to jump in and contribute, but this really is something that we as a state need to take care of. It was also discussed that, well, maybe you could just start with what funds you have available. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would consider that a responsible kind of policy. I think we need to make sure we have the money before we start with obligations that are out there. So we start on a project, not sure if we're going to have enough money or not, if we're going to get the approval or not for additional funds. So I'm not sure that that's quite the right reason. And then it was also posed that, the veterans home, if I'm getting that right, let's fund that and let's take care of that first. Well, it's not an either or. We can do both. We've got the funds available. So folks, I'd guess I'd throw it back to you to say, do we want to take care of our properties? Do we want to take care of buildings so that we can continue to use them for a long time to come and be responsible in how we take care of those? That's what this vote is about. I appreciate your support.
Any other representative on the amendment? Bear in mind, we are talking about second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 111. Representative Conley, for your second time.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Speaker. So I realized when I spoke earlier that this amendment is for the other community colleges. So I'm in favor of helping that college out. But I thought it wouldn't be bad just to take the opportunity to put a little support in for the college in my community. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Vote in favor.
Any other members? I have Representative Brown, Landon, Harshman, Davis, Nicholas, Campbell, and Ottman that may speak to this amendment on second reading. Question having been called back to the bringer. Representative Sherwood, please.
Thank you, Body, for the conversation. I just want to clarify that when you go and look through the agency's CapCon request, it's a fairly thick document, they do list out their priorities. And priority number 1 is major maintenance. So just a gentle correction, Veterans Home is priority number 2 after major maintenance. Again, the idea of we take care of what we've got. And then these projects that we're talking about now, so again, for Northwest College and LCCC, are in the top 10 of the priority list. So what is the process to create this priority list? So the Board of Trustees would submit a project concept. Then it is either approved by our state construction department or not. And then it is approved by our state building commission. And then they list out their priorities. And then we as a body, we've approved these projects last year, again, in our CapCon bill. And as it is apparent in our budget bill, we often disagree with our chief executive. So this is one of those times that I'm going to ask you to continue to disagree with our chief executive and go back to that state building commission request and get these projects done. Thank you, Body, for the conversation. And with that, I ask that you vote aye.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are voting on second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 111. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Fair, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haraldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, repeat, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Banks, no to aye. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 33 aye, 26 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen to adopt second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 111. House Bill 111 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are at that moment where we are going to be discussing bills on third reading and final passage. Reading clerk.
House Bill 19, sponsored by Travel, corner crossing clarification, an act relating to crimes and offenses being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have an amendment. Representative Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment to House Bill 19, and I'll withdraw it at the appropriate time.
Please proceed.
Members, I understand all the work that went into this bill, and I know this bill is needed. And the committee that worked on this bill did a fantastic job, but I'm still uneasy with this bill. And I'm admittedly, my unease may be with the court ruling that we're accommodating rather than the bill itself. But I'll just point to a little language in this bill that will explain my no vote. I don't know really how to fix it. And I apologize. I didn't bring an amendment to try to do that. But if you, criminal trespass, part of this bill, on the top of page 2 says, for purposes of this section, a person does not commit criminal trespass if the person is traveling from one parcel of land owned by local government, the state of Wyoming, or the federal government. And likewise, those definitions, you can cross the corner onto another piece of local government, state of Wyoming, or federal government land. That seems awful broad to me. In ranch country, in ag country, in any country. And so I don't know how to clean that up. I'm not sure that the federal ruling is that broad, the way I read that. I just wanted to bring that up to you for consideration, and I'll be a no vote.
Representative Byron, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Folks, in the bill, this is addressed. It is authorized to. You have to have permission to cross onto that piece of land. It has to be allowed. So if you're going to go, it's not about hunting. It's about hiking. It's about camping. It's about recreating. You have to have permission to cross into another piece of public land. It's addressed. And I recognize that the 10th Circuit ruling frustrates the previous speaker. It was appealed to the highest court, and they chose not to hear it. It's currently legal. I've discussed with some of you right now outside with very little snowshoes, because they can't be that big to corner cross. People are doing it. It's legal. This bill actually narrows it. This bill helps private landowners. This bill was asked for by our great law enforcement officers, men and women, saying we need clarity. We can't cite someone based off a 10th Circuit Court decision. So I understand the frustrations of the previous speaker. Let me be very clear that it is addressed in the bill. The committee worked very hard, had very wide open public meetings to talk about this, address the concerns through other concerns through amendments, and got it to a very, very, very good piece of legislation. I encourage an aye vote.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Thayer, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the legislator that brought these amendments, I do sit in a district, actually the district where all this started. And reaching out, we have a ton of outdoor and we have a ton of ranching. You guys, I'm going to, we're not going to win either way. I'm going to make it really simple. Either my son-in-laws are mad or my husband's mad. I don't win any other way. And I guess this is something that maybe bridges. Is it the exact perfect answer to which side? And so I would vote yes on this amendment, or this bill, sorry.
Representative Clouston, for your first time.
Thank you, Body. And I appreciate this bill in that it does help clean up
the language, it doesn't let you go on a bike. It doesn't let you go on a motorcycle. It doesn't let you use a four-wheeler. I do have a question though that was presented to me that I'll need some clarification on, and that's horseback. So I've had people reach out to me, and because it says on foot, does this eliminate horseback or not? I don't care either way. I'm just having people ask for clarification.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? Representative Jarvis, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can speak to that. So that was a proposed amendment in the last was for horses. But what we came across is that it would involve the dismantling of fences to be able to make that possible. And so what we came to is for right now to just make it a solid bill that isn't pretty like the good representative that where this all landlocked, right, issues came from. But to allow people the ability to move without touching the land. So it's basically like working yourself right around the fence to be able to get from one place to the other. And the reason that we did that is because then destruction of property is extremely minimalized. So horses were brought up and discussed, but it was how would that look and work if it's a corner, if it's fenced?
Representative Conley, for your first time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to say this bill came to the committee that I am on, and there was a lot of really good work done in the committee and a good amendment that addressed foot traffic that made this bill a lot more palatable. I just say that there's still concerns in my district about things like fencing logistics, increased pressure on easy accessible public lands. And would our ranchers and landowners have to consider doing a survey, paying for a survey to mark their corners, because the corners in a lot of these areas aren't obviously marked. And we know that a lot of folks are using their apps nowadays to figure out where they're at, but those apps aren't exactly 100% right on. So that's one of the big concerns from my landowners. Not that they don't realize public land should be accessible by the public, but in the practical sense, how do they manage that? So I'll probably be a no vote on the bill.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Wharf, for your first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too rise with concerns. I ran a sportsman's group in this state for close to 2 decades. Every time we polled our membership, access was the #1 issue. This has been an issue for a very long time. And I'll say it like I said in the committee, I don't think it's perfect. I'm concerned. I have concerns I've talked to the Game and Fish. They say that this is going to make it easier on their law enforcement folks. I don't want to counter them. I want to trust their judgment, but I'm afraid we're going to have people showing up saying, well, this is a corner, and we're going to have landowners showing up saying, no, this is a corner. And we're going to ask the agency that handles our wildlife, their LEOs, their law enforcement folks, we're going to ask them to be the referee. And the problem I see in this is that everybody's using the same technology that's good to about 3 meters, which is 9 feet. Being able to get within 9 feet of a pinpoint that's not identified is going to be very difficult. And I worry about things getting contentious. I worry about our game and or I shouldn't say, I guess we're not supposed to say game and fish, our wildlife officers.
Thank you, Representative.
Being in a position where they're asked to be a referee and they really don't have any better data than the two people that are going to be arguing where that corner is. The only thing that I will say about this bill that's a positive, I think it does move us forward to address this issue. I think there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. But I think what's more important is the state needs to identify where these areas are. If it's concentrated in one area, it's one thing. But I know down by me, UPRC ground, every other section. And it is checkerboard about 200,000 acres. And I can tell you, that's going to be a nightmare. I don't know what they're going to do to do that. I know that the landowner in the past has been working with people from our area, letting them go hunt. But this is, I think, going to cause some problems, but it will help the state identify if there's locations in the state that need to be looked at, or if it's statewide, if it's region-wide. I think we're rolling the dice on this one. It's gone through multiple reiterations, but we have to do something. And I think sitting back, doing nothing, the courts have said, like it or not, the courts have said it's legal. And so we got to figure out how to manage that. I suggested having landowners post a lot of the states that I've associated with. It's defined in the rules, but they say roads, corners, fishable streams, any place that sportsmen may be looking to gain access to public lands. In the past, what we've said in Wyoming is it's your responsibility as a sportsman to know where you're at. When I brought it up, some of the landowners or some of the people that represented landowners said they were concerned who should pay for it. Is it their responsibility, or is it the federal government, or is it the state? It was also brought up that state lands should be excluded because state trust lands have a specific purpose where they're to generate money for the state for the education program. There's some that would argue that even though we treat it as public land, it's not technically public land. It's treated as though the state is a private landowner, and they've got lease agreements that constitute established rights, and those rights need to be recognized. Those are some of the problems that are in this bill. I'm going to leave it to the body. I've always said, to me, my safety net is I trust. There's 62 of us. We all have different biases. We all have different views. We all have different priorities. But we have to trust the system, and I think all we can do is make it our best opportunity to address this problem. I can tell you, I don't think this bill will resolve all the issues, but it's moving forward under the direction that the 10th Circuit Court has established for us on federal lands. So with that, vote your conscience on this one. It's a hard vote for a lot of people, but your decision.
Representative Reagans, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A colleague of mine told me, he said, I wouldn't dare try it unless I was stepping over a brass cap on a corner. Other than that, pure identification, as if there's already a corner. Nobody really brought up, what if there's a lot of fence corners right there? I wouldn't be using that fence as my crossing point and crawling over the person who built its property, because it would be certainly damage it just a little bit. So just a warning to sportsmen. They narrowed it down to the traveling method, and make sure you're always prepared to defend yourself far as you're being in the right spot. Because the GPS is not going to be I don't think that's going to hold up in the long run. A stake, and I don't think the private property owner is responsible for staking that corner on a survey. I guess you want to get a whole team of people to do it and pay for it yourselves because there's a special spot. I would knock yourself out and try it like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? Representative Harshman.
Quickly, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Just a couple of clarifications. So we use the circuit court language in the standing committee amendment that this body adopted, travels by foot without physically contacting. It's really important. So we followed the judge's language on that deal. The other part is in our Constitution, public lands, we set up the state land board in the Constitution, but the slip board in the 1920s created by us. But our Constitution says that the state lands are managed by that board of land commissioners under the direction of the legislature. So that's part of that issue too. And then brass caps aren't always in the right place. You know, the most famous one of all time are the four corners of Arizona, Utah. That deal's about a half mile off. And Teddy Roosevelt vetoed the bill to move it. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to move it in 1914. So a lot of these caps are off, but I think over time they'll continue to get better. So this bill is really a huge, I brought this bill in 2011, got one vote. We've come a long ways, and it's an important thing. We got to solve this problem because it's not a crime to corner cross. But now we know you're not going to do it with your four-wheeler, your Jeep, or anything else, and we're not going to touch anybody else's property. So I think it's really important. Thank you.
Any other member? Representative Connolly? Please proceed if you desire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Realizing that this is approved now by the courts, my landowners understand that completely. But I want to just throw this out there, is that we're not always walking or hunting by ourselves. There's a lot of times we're in a group. And this is where things get kind of muddled up and I'm just going to use the floor out here because after this bill, I can't look at a tiled floor that has corner crossings on it anymore without, having a little pucker factor. So you've got a group of 10 people and they are going to access public to public. Are they gonna line up like little soldiers and each individually one? You're telling me they're really gonna do this, especially when they see a trophy buck somewhere on that land. They're gonna go one person by one person and they're gonna go across. I guess we can't use props, but it's still not quite good enough for me to be able to vote on it for my landowners, even though it is a good step forward. So thank you.
As ever, Representative Connolly, thank you. Any other members for their first time? No, we're still in first. No, I just wrote her down after Harshman. Or wait a minute. Oh, she's up in there, yeah. You are absolutely correct. Okay, well then we're in second. Here's who I have. Harshman, Riggins, Worf, Jarvis, Clausen, Thayer, and Byron. Any further second? Representative Jarvis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's just really quick. You guys, this is already a law. Like, it has already been established. It's happening. And if we don't, we are going to have people on ATVs cruising through people's land, and we're going to have the law enforcement trying to interpret this because nationally it's been made a mess of. So this actually puts the guardrails on it in a way that provides the law enforcement and provides clarity for the landowner and the hunter or the recreationalist to be able to understand what it is that they're supposed to do in order to be able to access these lands.
Representative Worf, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A point that I'd like to make, just for the body to understand, as the committee was talking about this issue, you know, it went from foot traffic to how about foot traffic and pack animals to how about ATVs? And then the big question was when they come up and said, what about the ADA? You know, we need to be ADA compliant. And I can tell you that's the issue that I think most of our landowners in this state, I think it's fair to say most of them are concerned with the fact that where do you stop it? How do you stop it? You know, obviously trying to find a pinpoint and cross. I'm not so sure that the courts understand the complexity of this issue. I don't think we do. I hope that this body understands what we're actually doing. The courts have said this. We have people that are going to go do it. And I don't know that we have enough out there for them to not get into conflict. So I do think we need to be cognizant of the law. We need to be cognizant of the fact that this only plugs a little bit of that hole. It opens up a lot of doors. But I am still concerned that we're going to ask the guys that do our enforcement, protect our wildlife and our natural resources, are going to be asked to be the judge where the corners are. And they're not expert surveyors. It's already been mentioned that the guys that went out and actually put markers in didn't necessarily put the marker in the right spot. So there are all kinds of problems. This is a big issue. Just vote your conscience. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their second time? Seeing none? Well, one more. Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wow, that got complicated, and it's not that complicated. Let me just answer some questions. The horse was brought up by a good representative from Northeast Wyoming. The finite point, my horse that I ride is pretty wide, and because he has to be. So if that horse drags that foot on private property, you can't do that. The bill explains that. So we contemplated that. Doesn't work unless you have a very accurate horse. It was mentioned, what about fences? Put your fence up. It's your land. Good representative from over a few mountain ranges said it's going to affect fencing. This bill doesn't affect fencing at all. Put your fence up. Put your fence up. So you're right. Keep your cows in. That same representative, who's a dear friend of mine, also said, well, my folks are worried because more people will get to access public land. She said, they're worried. The constituents are worried because more people will be on their public land if this passes. Let that sink in. On the amendment, appreciate the bringer. Folks, this isn't complicated. It's not complicated. This bill was worked hard. Support public land. Vote aye.
Back to the bringer. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for all that clarity. Clearing everything up for me. Appreciate that. Thank you to the committee for all your hard work. And I will respectfully withdraw my amendment.
Without objection to the body, the amendment has been withdrawn. Body, you are voting on third reading bill number 19 to see if it will pass. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Ellamand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Bornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 32 aye, 28 no, 2 excused.
House Bill number 111, having been received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 111 has passed the House. Next bill for consideration is House Bill 23. Reading clerk.
House Bill 23, sponsored by Education. Participation in 6 through 12 activities, an act relating to public school co-curricular and extracurricular activities being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
We have amendments. Representative Lawley.
Mr. Speaker.
Oh, Yin.
Representative Yin. Thank
Yeah,
you.
send it to Yin. Representative Yin, I understand you're bringing it.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 23 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, I left it at my desk, but so this is similar to the amendment that you saw during committee of the whole. I cut a couple of things down. The fee that goes down, the amount that is appropriated goes down. It goes down to about a third of what we had in the first whole reading amendment, the first committee of the whole reading amendment. The intent here again is to make sure that school districts stay whole for the ones that they are actually teaching as enrolled students, while we still at the same time allow homeschool kids to participate in sports. Because I think, again, it's a great idea to allow the whole community to participate in the sports with the rest of the community. We also put a part in there where if there is a partial ADM, they can't apply for the fee as well. So any student that's in band, for example, and the school district gets some amount of ADM for them, the school district is not eligible to reimburse that fee. And again, it's only for the school districts that have these students and they get them reimbursed, and they get reimbursed for the following school year. So it's not like $500,000 is going out automatically. I actually think the number is probably going to be pretty small, and which is why I shrunk that number down to a third. But at the same time, I do think that it's really important to be fair to all the other students in the school district. And with that, I'll ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lawley, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the efforts of the bringer of the bill to really tailor this down, because the truth is we don't have a place in the model where the schools are getting funding for this. And I think this is reasonable and fair. These are tax dollars that we're talking about in this bill that are paid by homeschooler students. So this is not a bill that requires them to pay anything, the parents, the students, but it does recognize that we are doing that thing we hate when the federal government does, of somewhat of an unfunded mandate. And so we want to encourage, my view is the whole point of this exercise for me has been about how much I value, and I think we all in this room value, what this does to our community for homeschool students to be able to be invited to participate. We're going to see a bill soon that talks about classes and that the idea of access. We want that access for our homeschool students if their parents choose. It's a part of the choice. But we do on the side of classes already provide for an accommodation within the model for a partial ADM. So, but on here we don't. But this, I know in my community, has such great value to the community, so good for these kids, the families. It creates a lot of unity and positive things. So again, I'm not against the amendment. You could decide for yourself if you think it's a good or bad thing, but I think it helps relieve some of the district's concerns about rising costs of participation. But we're actually saying as a body, this is good policy. We want this policy, and we're going to provide a way for districts to be made whole for that. So again, I'll be voting for the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Chairman Andrew, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment, what this bill does is just continue the precedent that has been set for a very long time. This is a very small and potentially even shrinking group of students that this would even apply to. There's not a huge cost associated with them. A lot of the cost is wrapped up in transportation, which is 100% reimbursed. And I just don't think there is a need for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for the first time? Representative Harshman? Yep, Representative Harshman, first time.
Shocking experience. Sorry for my tardiness to the mic. I wasn't going to speak, but then I just want to correct that. Transportation certainly is reimbursed, but helmets, shoulder pads, jerseys, cleats, shoes, meals, those things aren't reimbursed. And I think that's where this amendment's coming from. And a helmet's only $400 now. So shocking. But anyway, so thank you for bringing the amendment, your support. Thank you.
Any other members, first time? Any others? Seeing none, second time? Representatives, anybody? Representative Wally? Second time? Okay, back to the bringer, Representative Yen.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, members. And again, the $500,000 is a cap. So that way they're not going to spend more than $500. Again, I really don't think it's going to be that much, but I do think it's important to be fair to our school districts while simultaneously encouraging all of these homeschool kids to participate in their community sports. And with that, I'll ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Members, you are voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 23. All those in favor, I'll just be able to do a roll call. We got dollars involved. So Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, repeat, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Feiler, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, excused, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, I'm sorry, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, repeat, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 25 aye, 34 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen not to adopt third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 23. House Bill 23, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members of the House. Oh, no, we haven't moved that yet. We got not that part. I got to jump up here one. I've been read 3 separate times, House Bill 23. The question is, shall the bill pass? Now we're at that right stage. Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmass, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Provenza, aye. To no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 57 aye, 3 no, 2 excused.
House Bill 23, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 23 has passed the House. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before we recess, look at the schedule, the updated schedule for Cal. Somehow during the night that got rearranged by numerical order. It's back to the way it should be. So that's more correct now. We only have one committee meeting during lunch and they only have one bill. Shouldn't take very long. So we're only going to take a 1-hour lunch. We got a lot of important things to do this afternoon. So we will, I move that the House stand in recess until 1:15.
You've heard the motion. Are there any committee announcements? Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 6, travel, will meet in 10 minutes downstairs in our normal room to discuss Senate File 24, lottery tickets, acceptance of debit card payments.
Representative Washut, Chairman Washut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 1 will meet Friday morning at 8 a.m. in room number 1 to discuss Senate File 7, theft amendments, and Senate File 8, engross absconding for criminal purposes.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2 appropriations is going to be meeting today at 12:30 to consider one bill, House Bill 129, expanding Physician Access Act. And this is a re-referral bill, and that'll be at 12:30 today.
Thank you, Representative. Any others? All right, we will be back here at 1:15. Thank you all.